All right, welcome to the On Purpose podcast. We are doing a new edition called Kingdom Behavior Indicators. And so this is the introduction. And Kirk, what are kingdom behavior indicators?
Excellent question. Excellent question. Kingdom behavior indicators. Well, it's turned out to be a really important answer to a question that kept coming up over and over again. But let us start at the beginning. So, kingdom behavior indicators. So, first word is kingdom. This is the kingdom referred to here is not your personal kingdom or queendom. It is God's kingdom that's being referred to here. So, these are behaviors. We're discussing behaviors and we're discussing God's kingdom. And then there's the word indicator. So what does an indicator do? It points to something. It lets you know something. It might, if you have indicators in a car, it might let you know that your air pressure is low in your tire, might let you know that your brakes are not working, or you might use an indicator to let people know that you're going to be turning left. Your brake lights are an indicator that you're going to stop. So indicator like points to something or communicates something, right? Brings your awareness to something. So these are kingdom behavior indicators. So we've identified 8 behaviors. There could have been more, there could have been less. I don't think that's important right now. But we've distinguished 8 behaviors that are consistent with living in the kingdom. Now, the kingdom the kingdom is God's kingdom, and our mission, our village here, what we're up to, who we are, and what we're up to is fulfilling a covenant of bringing heaven on earth. So we feel like we're doing that, and we actually feel like we've done that, and now we're scaling up, right? And so we have roughly 40 people living on 5 acres, and it's kind of tight. We spend a lot of time together. You run into all the time, which is good because we're all mirrors for each other. And what we've noticed is and what has surprised us the most out of anything, we've been at this 5 or 6 years now, but what has surprised, what we've noticed very intensely, and what has surprised us the most is how difficult it is for people to be happy. Is incredible. It's incredible. Like here, there's everything's taken care of. There's no financial concerns. We ask for 4 hours a day of work trade, 5 days, 6 days a week. And we do have a lot of meetings, which is kind of a thing. But it's a beautiful life. It's a beautiful life. It's like everybody's here, possibly with an exception or two. I'm not present to that exactly, but everyone is here, like completely experiences this is way better than anything else they've ever experienced. And yet, people are walking around anxious, upset, pissed off, judgmental, resentful, all tacky, and just all the things. And so that's been kind of interesting for us. Like, wow, like we can provide all this, and still people are um people have left the world that they came from to be here, but they brought the world with them. So we talk a lot about domestication here. We might have talked about it on this podcast before, but just briefly, domestication is something that all human beings experience, and it's the result of being rewarded and punished your entire life. And who you're rewarded and punished by is those who have authority over you: parents, teachers, bosses, um, and governments. And what they do is when you do something they reward you, and when you do something they don't like, they punish you. And so our entire civilization has grown up being punished and rewarded, punished and rewarded. And this domestication isn't for us. It's not like we're being trained to thrive in a difficult world. It's not that kind of training. It's training to essentially turn into a robot or turn into a cog in a machine. To do what you're told, stop thinking, stop complaining, stop worrying about the truth, stop worrying about fairness. Don't worry about what I promised yesterday. We live in a world where governments lie to get elected and then routinely don't follow their promises. And then the next group does it, or they do it the next year. It doesn't even register. Like, we're so used to lying. People aren't judged for lying. They're crucified for telling the truth. They're celebrated for lying. And because everybody is in this domestication, we've learned to live in a lie. The first lie being that it's appropriate to domesticate each other. On and on and on. So what's the point of all that? The point of all that is people come in from the world, with the smiles and the right words and the right clothes, and you go, oh, awesome, this will be a great contributory asset to our mission. And then a little wind blows, somebody speaks to them in a particular tone or just whatever, and kaboom, like you get a seismic shift earthquake from a little breeze. You're like, whoa, that feels a little disproportionate. What's in there? What you got packed and stacked all up in there? And it turns out what people have packed and stacked down there would shock you, both in how many people come in just completely unhealed from a difficult childhood or a difficult life. And unaware of their state of unhealedness, because that's just how the world is, and it doesn't really show up until you come into a community where people are healing up and growing up and waking up and following God and following Jesus and living inside of a covenant to bring heaven on earth. That's a very different space than any of us have grown up in. And so what we've noticed over and over again is people have great difficulty kind of fitting into our groove, like settling down, casting off the domestication, actually seeing that they're saved and loved and supported. All these defense mechanisms that we've had from the past are no longer necessary. We don't need to pack and stack anymore. We can feel our feelings and we can let it out, and we can communicate, we can tell the truth, and we can confront dysfunction, and we can be upset, and all the things, right? So we have been for years now trying to find a higher way to respond ably to fulfill our commitment, like create heaven on earth and have people come and actually experience peace, love, and joy. So that last part's been the most difficult. Have people come in is easy. Have people come in and experience peace, love, and joy has been quite a bit more difficult. And so kingdom behavior indicators are registers for something. There's a register, I guess the same as an indicator, right? So as you start to get present to these 8 different qualities, which I'll start talking about in just a minute, it's informative. You start to get a shape and a form of where you're at as a human being with regard to your state of healedness. And for most people, it's quite low. Most people are quite unhealed, much more than they are aware of, and certainly much more than they're all interested in revealing. Like a wounded animal, the ego wants to hide the wound, the weakness, right? So weak people act tough, and dumb people act smart, and like that. So another thing that the kingdom behavior indicators are is it's like a roadmap, a direction to freedom. If you will tell the truth to yourself about these 8 qualities inside of you, these 8 aspects of you inside of you, and where you're actually at about it, and you start to let it in and let go of the judgment or let go of the shame or whatever, and start stepping towards the fulfillment of these aspects, which I'll share in just a moment, that will be a roadmap to freedom. It's like, this is the way. And it's also like what actually works. Like, here's what to actually work on. Here's what to actually be aware of. Like, if I know many parts of my life where I've been in a difficult situation, I wasn't really sure what to have my attention on. I wasn't really sure what to be at work on. Should I get tougher? Should I get smarter? Should I be more political? Should I be funnier? Should I, where do I go? What do I do? What direction? Like, so, all right. So here are the answers to those questions. Okay. Number one, we have on the kingdom behavior indicators is humility. So the very first thing one needs to step into a new environment and thrive is humility. People come in here and try to tell us how to organize the meetings and lead our programs and coach each other and all things, and they have no idea what they're talking about because they haven't cast off the domestication enough to even see what we're up to here. You don't see people for who they are. You see people for who you are. You're the lens through which you look at the world. So the only thing you can see through that lens that you are is that which resonates with you. So people come in and see us drawing a line and they think we're being bullies, or people come in and see us make an exception and people think we don't follow our own rules, or people come in and see us telling the truth to somebody and somebody thinks we're being mean. Like they don't understand what we're doing, where we came from, what we have our attention on, who we're talking to, and where we're all going together. So the first thing you must have is humility to even begin to have an awareness of where you are and with whom you are and what we're up to. And we happen to find that humility is generally massively lacking in people. People come in thinking they're humble, but they fight for every opinion they have. Okay, so settle down for a minute. Listening to what I have to say and considering it doesn't diminish you in any way. You can at least try on what I'm saying for a moment. Humility, like being humble. The next thing is willingness. So it takes courage to set down everything you've been so certain of. This is how I need to be in the world. I need to do that. And the willingness to, okay, let me try something new. The willingness to try being humble, for example. People may find they're not humble, but they're unwilling to give it a shot. Being vulnerable is right there with humility and willingness. Like, access to true power is being vulnerable. We're all walking around pretending like we're something that we're not, pretending like we have accomplished things that we haven't, or we're seeing things that we don't, and just all the things. And it's all like a defense mechanism from the world that we grew up in, and we haven't stopped to heal the wounds that were created. And so we keep fighting the fight, even though it's not happening. We defend ourselves against people who are not attacking us. And then awareness is the fourth one. Like, you know, people go through their entire lives and miss the most fundamental things: the importance of love, the importance of family, the importance of integrity, the importance of character. I didn't have that awareness. I was not taught that when I grew up. I had no character and no scruples until I had an awareness that a life of integrity, a life of character would steer me towards being someone I could actually be proud of, and not someone who was just surviving the world. Authenticity right there with vulnerability. Revealing where you actually are. Here's how I actually feel. Here's what I actually think. Here's what I actually did. Not the version that I think you want to hear, or not the version that makes me look good. Authenticity is very rare in this world. And what people don't realize when they're inauthentic, when they're wearing a mask or presenting what they think the other person wants to hear, what they miss is they leave themselves out. So the whole point of being inauthentic is to score points, win friends, and influence people, whatever, right? But the more successful you are in being inauthentic, the more you leave yourself out. So the more you succeed, the more you lose. And people go through their whole lives living lives that are ever and ever further away from what they really think and what they really feel and what they really want. And responsibility, the ability to respond ably to everything around you. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've noticed the world's become very whiny and complaining lately. Everybody's like fighting to be the biggest victim. No, I'm a bigger victim than you. People are so committed to being victims. Well, I don't want to make this all super controversial today, so uh, victimhood is worship. So this is 2025. I don't know when anybody will be watching this, but we're either deep in or maybe towards the end of the whole woke era, which I'm sure you'll read about in history books as one of the craziest times in our history. But it's a ideology where victimhood is celebrated and competency and meritocracy and are disdained and fought against. People are lining up and coming up with new ways to be a victim, new categories of victimness. Why would someone do that? Well, because it's perceived to be easier than being responsible to responding ably in everything in your life. When I say being responsible for everything in your life, I'm not saying make it your fault. I'm not saying you're to be blamed. I'm saying everything in your life is in your life. It's not in my life, it's in your life. And you can either respond ably to what's in your life, regardless of where it came from, because it's in your life, or you can point at it, whine, complain, and have a tirade, jump on your back and kick your feet in the air and whine and complain about it. That's what most people are taught. Congruency of being. Something I've seen, I can count on one hand the times I've seen this out in the world, where someone's words match who they're being and what they're doing. Well, that sounds pretty simple, Kirk. It is really simple. Incredibly rare. Congruency of being is the idea that your words and your being and your actions could all line up perfectly. It's the opposite of being a hypocrite, but it's bigger than that. I call it being the real deal. When your words and your actions and your being line up, that's the real deal. What more could you ask for from a person? Real deal isn't being loud and brash and obnoxious and pushy and arrogant. It's just being consistent, being congruent. It's incredibly powerful and incredibly magnetic. The whole reason I'm here and part of this mission is because I experienced that with John the first time I met him. And we were at a little seminar in Austin, Texas, and 50 people in the room maybe. And he started leading, and I saw it instantly. And what I also saw instantly is that no one else saw it. And so congruency of being was one of the indicators. And the last one is contribution. So I certainly was taught in life to be a taker, to be a victim, and to lie, cheat, and steal, and take just whatever it took to accomplish whatever objective I had next, which is generally some form of survival. And that's all I'd ever known until my 20s. Like I just thought that's the way everyone was, and that's the way the world was. That's certainly how I was brought up. And and then something else came online. I was at a big transformational weekend when I was 36. And I was just got gotten out of having a hard time. My life is story of my life has these little valleys in it that were pretty difficult. And anyway, so uh, I'm at this transformational weekend, and I really get present to how who I've been in my life up to then is not something that I thought much of. I wasn't proud of who I was. I didn't love or like who I was. I was literally just, my experience was surviving a difficult life and doing the best I could. I didn't have time for like ethics and aesthetics and feelings, all that kind of stuff. I was just trying to get to the next day usually. And this whole idea of actually being a resource for the world, like actually providing something, like putting a stopper in the drain and becoming a fountain. I was at that time probably a long way from really being a big contribution, but I had the awareness and the seeds got planted that I could actually be a man of character. I could actually be someone that I could be proud of. And then, so that was my first really taste of contribution. And then some years later, I was going through another little valley there, 2016. Coming out of that is when I met John and, Earthquaking University. I was going through a really dark time. I was just kind of at the beginning of it, and I was losing everything. My 10-year relationship, which I thought was going to be my last one, to my home in Tremay in New Orleans, which is a long story, but absolutely incredibly beautiful, which I thought would be the last place I would live. I was in walking distance to my favorite bar on Frenchman Street, where every Monday night they had the Monday night super jam, and I'm a drummer. And it was like my dream come true, and just all these different things. And it all came to an end. I didn't lose everything. I still had plenty of debt, but everything else all came to an end. And I was terrified. I'm someone who's used to having a plan and having confidence and da 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 da, and I just had nothing, and I was terrified. And I could feel the darkness coming back. I could feel the manipulative and the, okay, let's go out and lie, cheat, and steal, whatever. It wasn't like words like that, but I could just feel that darkness kind of taking me over again, the darkness from the past. And by the grace of God, I presume, something just came through like, no, I'm going to be the biggest, baddest contribution I can possibly be. I know I'm going into a dark time, which I have no idea how I'm going to get out of, but I'm declaring that I will get out of it. I'm going to start developing myself as the biggest, baddest contribution I possibly can, and my ability to contribute will be my salvation. And so it was. A couple of 2 or 3 years later, when I'm so anyway, I've added some stories and some depth to the different aspects, but so the aspects are humility, willingness, vulnerability, awareness, authenticity, responsibility, congruency of being, and contribution. And so this is meant to be like an introduction, kind of like just a general landscape and feel for what we're going to be talking about for the next 8 weeks, I presume. And I'll pause there and give it back to you.
Thank you, Kirk. I'm really moved by these conversations, and the intention of this 8-week journey is to really assist people in being able to have the awareness of where they're at inside of these indicators, and like a roadmap, like what you were talking about with a register on how they can see themselves inside of that world. And so with that, how can someone be able to gauge from the low point to the high point of these indicators?
Well, we haven't actually got to that yet. But are you talking about like the leadership team assessing other people? Or are you talking about people assessing themselves?
Somebody being able to assess themselves,
Yeah.
like as a register for
Yeah.
themselves,
Yeah. I think it takes a lot of awareness to assess oneself. One of the things that I've noticed is as I've given people opportunities to assess themselves in different things, I usually disagree quite a bit on that assessment, and usually I'm on the lower, like, no, so look a little bit lower. So I anticipate it will be somewhere here. In fact, we've already had a little taste of that. Most people think they're much more humble than we think they are, you know. So what I'm going to is the idea of mirrors. I mentioned earlier that in our village, there's 40 people who are mirrors for each other. I remember thinking to myself, I want to say a little bit more about that. Boom, here we are. So one of the ways that we hold each other in this village is that we're mirrors for each other. And so it's very difficult, like just me, you know, doing whatever I'm doing, it's very difficult to see myself. Like how is my hair right now? How is my, like, did I shave this, do I have whiskers all over? Like, I don't really know where I'm at until I look in the mirror. Like, oh, yeah, oh, snap. Okay, go. Oh, I better get right to that. And so we provide that for each other. Like, hey, that was dysfunctional. Hey, that was really mean, or that was judgmental, or I can see you're hurting because I just said good morning and you blew up on my face and I thought you were gonna, hit me. What's going on with you? Whatever, right? So so we're gonna be getting into having in-depth conversations with our villagers using this kingdom behavior indicators. But I imagine it'll be what I'm interested in is a combination of how people would rate themselves. Every villager here has a mentor. And so I think it'd be interesting to contrast how people rate themselves with how their mentor rates them, and possibly even how the village might rate them would be another interesting, get a three-way sort of thing there.
Yeah.
I think would be very interesting. And it's subjective. Like scale of 1 to 10, how humble is somebody, or how humble am I? It's one of the things that we've said is that only Jesus would hold a 10 on these. So a perfect score for me might be a 9. So that kind of starts to give a little shape for it, a little form to it. And so really, as I'm looking between 1 and 9 in my reality. So also we might all have a slightly different perspective of how the scale works, right? So that's gonna thing. But I don't think the granularity is what's important, and it might turn out to be important. We might find a way to harness that. I think what's going to be interesting is the difference in perception between the villager and the mentor, perhaps. Oh, I think I'm a 10 on willingness. Really well. I remember when I asked you to do this, you got an attitude and told me to go fuck myself. And I remember when I brought this to you, you stormed off. That doesn't feel willing to be. Could you say a little bit more about that and start to like really have that conversation in service of awareness, right? So I think it's going to be interesting, the gaps between different people's assessments, and then the rest of it we're just going to have to muddle through. Like I don't really know how to rate these other than fully intuitively or subjectively. So I think I really like this word, muddling through it. In my teenage years, I spent 4 years in England, so that kind of influenced my, who I am quite a bit, a little bit, quite a bit, a little bit, somewhere in between. And then we had somebody in our village, Max, who was in English, and he used the word muddle, which I just really love, because it's just like this idea that you just show up and just kind of get started, and just you're assuming it's going to move forward, but there's no like weird intensity or crazy plan. You're just going to kind of show up and kind of working through it. So that's how I see this. We're going to show up and start the conversation and kind of muddle through it and kind of go where it goes. And probably after a few minutes, there'll start to be some clarity somewhere. They'll all kind of move in that direction and kind of like that. Muddling. We'll have to add that to a program soon.
Yeah. There was, we were talking earlier today, and you impacted me with our conversation about the purpose of something being fulfilled.
Oh,
And having that be the main intention
that was a
that
great
you can
conversation.
always refer back to. Can you bring us to that?
Yeah, I love that one. Yeah. So we were talking about So we have a villager here who's had a history of bullying and being very aggressive, manipulative, and bullying. And we don't really tolerate that here, So very quickly it's like, hey, you gotta you gotta cut that shit out. You gotta leave. And so, she's very heartfelt and had a rough go of it and all that kind of stuff, right? So anyway, so we did a redo. We did a redo. We're like, okay, all the time you've been here, we're just gonna give grace to all that. We're gonna restart and redo, and you're gonna start with 14 days, and then if that goes well, then you can request a 30-day and re-up and all that kind of stuff. She just requested her 30-day re-up today. And then we noticed, and then about the thing, the behaviors of, we made her sign an agreement. No bullying, no coaching, no, you're gonna be respectful of your cohabitant's space, in your room, and all the things, right? And she broke a lot of the agreements. And the agreement was, if she broke the agreement, she'd have to leave. So that's all super cut and dry. There's nothing to have a conversation about, except what are we actually here for? What are we committed to? Like what are we doing? Well, heaven on earth. Okay, cool. How's that going to be with three of us? Not great. So it's heaven on earth and providing a place where people can come and heal and grow up and wake up and learn how to thrive and like a new kind of human being, one that's not undomesticated, one who follows God and open-hearted and a new, like the new earth, new earth. I think kingdom behavior indicators could be, I guess, is the new behavior for the new earth. They're not new behaviors, but following them would be. The behaviors are not new, but the application of them.
So we're going in the direction, right? Though.
Yes. So new earth, new behaviors, that kind of vibe. So what are we doing here? Well, we're providing a space for people to come, and what we're really seeing massively is, first of all, is just the healing. People are broken and twisted, and it's very difficult to function when you're broken. Very difficult to wake up when you're all contorted. So first is healing the wounds, and then waking up, and then growing up and becoming a great leader. So there we are. She's like all, open-hearted and repentful and repenting, but here's the thing. There was a law's broken, boom, there's let's not take up any of our time with this, people. Except that, what are we here for, right? So there's an intention to our mission, heaven on earth, a space for people to come and be connected to God and experience peace, love, and joy. And so heaven on earth, creating a space for people. People are coming in all broken and unhealed. So therefore, we must provide a space for healing. And here's this beautiful soul, repentant and wounded, unhealed, and doesn't have full capacity of those things. Like the bullying comes out before she catches it. And I think, she's trying. Before she wasn't really trying, I don't think. Well, she wasn't really aware of it. And then with awareness came the ability to actually start practicing. And I don't know about you, but the first time I got on a bicycle, I ran to a bush. And the second time I got on a bicycle, I ran to the back of a car. And about 10 times later, I'm a terror in the neighborhood for about a week until I actually get the groove of it, And that's just riding a bike. That ain't nothing to figure out how to live in heaven on earth. So here's the thing, right? In the past, a law broken and a penalty would be just super clear for me. Nothing to bust my brain about. But boom, let's get on to the next piece of business. And I would do that without the slightest, whatever. That's how I was dealt with in my early career, and I could make the argument that that worked pretty good for me. But anyway, that was another time and another place. This is now and here. And so one of the things I think is important is, so we have a purpose with the mission, we have a purpose with our people, and then there was a purpose with this agreement. Hey, you don't do these things. Sign. Do you understand and agree to this? Yes, I do. Do you understand the consequences? Yes, I do. Good, sign here. Great. Here's a copy. Any questions? No, I got it. I'm in. Let's do this. And then 2 weeks later, here we are. Right. So now that process, that agreement had an intention. What was the intention? Well, to assist her in waking up, healing. Well, healing up really first. So assist her in healing up. Okay, freeze. We're 2 weeks later. She did what she did. She didn't do what she didn't do. She broke the agreement. And now we're deciding whether or not to let her stay for another 30 days. Cool. Well, what's the right move? To honor the agreement or to make a conscious, what I call a conscious exception? Now, to make a conscious exception, you must be at the source of what the rule is for. Oh, wait a minute. What was that agreement for? That agreement was to assist her in healing and being able to thrive, setting a foundation for her to be able to live and thrive here. Okay, perfect. Then then it's not about here's the rule that was broken, do the thing, and let's stop talking about it. It's always about what's my next highest move to fulfill what I'm here for. So the next move is either going to be to ask her to leave or to re-up or say yes for another 30 days. And I wasn't there for the vote, so I had to leave. But what I offered the village is, hey, in the past, this would have been very clear cut for me. But one thing I've noticed is people are coming in incredibly unhealed. I notice that takes time. And so I think what's important is what was the agreement for and what's the highest move? What the village chose was to grant her the 30 days. And the village decided that that was the next highest move to fulfill our intention to assist our sister in thriving in heaven on earth. Now, was that the right answer? I don't know. Was that the wrong answer? I don't know. But what's important to me is where we looked. We opened up our hearts. We asked ourselves questions. We had a conversation. And then a decision was reached. From fulfilling what we're here for, not getting it right or following the rules. Some of the worst crimes in history have been perpetrated because someone was following the rules. Well, I didn't know what was happening. Well, oh, so you weren't at the source of what you were saying yes to. Right. So I'm going to piggyback another conversation, which is being at the source of. I said that for years and hundreds of times before somebody says, well, what do you mean by that? Oh, great. Somebody asked me. Good. Let's finally, we get to begin this journey. Yeah. I'm sorry. Could you ask that question a little more loudly, please? and tomorrow? But anyway, being at the source of something is understanding why you're doing what you're doing. What's the purpose of it? Why was it invented? I've been in so many companies and organizations where people are following the rules and being fucking dicks and jerks about it, like really mean and but you say, okay, well, what was that rule for again? If you ever ask that question of someone in authority who's dysfunctional, get prepared for the massive attack that follows. Who the hell what do you think you are? I'm just somebody who's trying to understand why we're doing what we're doing. I apologize if that's deeply offensive to you. In case you're interested, I also somewhat offended when you keep talking to me that way, but I guess that's not. So let's just talk about what you need. So being at the source of something in my world is this incredibly adult commitment. By the way, adults are people who take care of others, and children are people who need to be taken care of. Age has nothing to do with it. Most people come in as children in adult bodies. They just need to be taken. Oh, I got to talk to this one. I got why. And the few adults are ones like holding space for us all to be adults. And so being at the source of something is that commitment to really deeply, as deeply as you possibly can, understand why you're doing what you're doing. And from understanding why you're doing what you're doing, then you can artfully and lovingly and effectively make conscious exceptions where that would serve the intention, where that would serve what we're here for, what we're at the source of. And so I'll post it.
There's something coming through, and we live on holy ground. It's called grace. And it's the unmerited favor of God. It's unearned. You can't do anything for it. And most of our lives, we've been trying to keep the law. We can't. Like, we always break them. But the way that you just distinguished our sister here in the village, how she had a repentant heart, you know,
Yeah.
like we make mistakes, we're human. But where are their feet moving? Where are they headed? Where are they going? And how many times have we messed up and we were granted the favor of God, you know, and how the heck did we get here? Can we remember that, please?
And,
You know, and
and oftentimes the people who are the most judgmental about other people being kind of difficult to develop were the ones themselves who were the most difficult to develop.
oh yes.
And I often point that out. Oh, by the way, I don't remember your history. I do.
Woo! I think God does that. I think that's his big, you know, hey, haha, I'm gonna bring you back into
Yes.
your life and see if you're all healed up real quick.
Does this sound familiar?
Do you remember you? Do you want me to remind you real quick?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, that's good. So keeps you on your toes.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a deep dive journey into these behaviors. We're going to go one at a time each week, and I invite you to open up your heart, open up your mind, open up your spirit into these conversations, because they will impact you for the rest of your life. They've definitely changed my character, the people around me. I've seen it's not something that you change and you just switch something over. It's like you are not the same person ever again. You're transformed from the inside out. And that's from his grace moving and having a way with our being. And so thank you, Kirk, for this introduction, for our kingdom behavior indicators and how we can find ourselves inside of that, and that the purpose of this is not for rules. It's about grace. It's about what he came and did, and it's unearned. So I hope that you receive it, and thank you.